So, hello and welcome back to our franchise success series. I'm Barry Doyle and it's episode number 1 with our franchise partner, Kevin O'Keefe. A little bit about myself. I am the franchise development manager for ActionCOACH Ireland. And Kevin, it's great to be joined by yourself. We're going to hear all about your story with ActionCOACH. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks, Barry. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Kevin, you might just tell us a little bit, I suppose, about your professional background and your experience before becoming a coach.
Yeah, okay. I started off life in Cork, or my working life. I did a BCom in the local college here, UCC, and went on to become qualified as a chartered accountant. But, accountancy was great grounding, but really what I wanted to do after that is get into sales. So the minute I qualified, I went into sales and was involved in selling money basically to SMEs for funding bricks and mortar and machinery, that kind of stuff. So when bankers were sitting in their ivory towers waiting for people to come in, we were given a briefcase and a car and sent off selling, which was, everybody's doing that now, but back then it was a bit new. So I did that in the Munster area for a number of years, and then based out of Dublin, doing much the same with the enterprise development or enterprise startups. Then got talking to Citigroup and went to their joint venture in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia to set up a corporate advisory unit and a project finance unit, all together. So working with the locals, but also working with American, Far Eastern European. How do we set up? What do we do? And all the time selling them bank products, be it interest rate swaps, currency swaps, loans, advice, and so on. Did that for about 6 years, then was back to London and working with people like Barclays Capital, Schroders. And my patch was North Africa, the Gulf up as far as Iran. All interesting countries in their own right, but again, doing much the same thing, working with American, Far Eastern European, a lot of British, obviously, as well. Again, how do we set up? What do we do? And all the time selling them products. Came back to Ireland. I was a single dad of 3 kids, had to come back and start parenting these as they hit teenage. So came into Cork again and kind of looked around for a number of months when I came back, and then decided I thought ActionCOACH looked interesting and decided to buy into that franchise.
And what did you think was most interesting about ActionCOACH, Kevin? And I suppose following on from your background in obviously the corporate and sales, what do you love the most about coaching?
Well, back then, what motivated me was a bit of a leap of faith to land out the amount of money there was at the time to buy the invisible. But I met with Paul, and what motivated me was a couple of things. One is I like the system. I like the global reach. I knew that I'd be based in Cork, but I like the concept of working locally, but still having a global reach based on my background, what I would have been used to, going around to all sorts of different countries. And what I liked was the system, that it was practical, based on actual practical results that the businesses were getting. So that appealed to me. I was looking at 2 or 3 other franchises at the time. Another one started to discount, which turned me off straight away. ActionCOACH didn't discount a penny, so I was impressed by that. And that's mainly, I was able to work from home. Again, I'd been in the corporate world for quite a while, but I was able to then manage the kids that I had as well, that were, as I say, in that interesting teenage stage. So the flexibility appealed to me.
Interesting. And you mentioned, I suppose, the flexibility. I suppose one question comes to mind is the impact that ActionCOACH has had, I suppose, on you and your life. Talk us through that.
Yeah, with the education I had in the background, I had one of those fatal things where I reckoned I knew everything I needed to know. So the biggest impact was understanding, well, actually, I didn't. And I suppose the idea of following a system, I spent a few months not doing that, which was very expensive. And so the impact of following a system, actually, getting as close as you can, particularly when you're starting out, just to stay with that system, believe in it, and work it through, rather than trying to change it after spending a lot of money on buying it. So that was that. it's also helped me in my own sort of investment side of things. This concept of wealth being a three-legged stool, I suppose. One is the cash flow coming from the business, the coaching, but then investing that money into shares and into property, which I did, and which I cashed in later years. So that helped to actually set me up for retirement if I wanted it. But I have no interest in that. I'm quite passionate about business. I love what I'm doing. Like working with business owners, and again, understanding that they're the experts in their business. But what I've been taught to be good at is bringing them from where they're at to where they want to go. So overall, individually, the whole mindset around in the corporate world, it was more win-lose scenario. So in this setup, it's the focus on win-win. Everybody wins, which is quite a different mindset from where I was when I joined Action.
You win, the client wins. I suppose coaching, you mentioned improvement, and that's something you have a passion for. I suppose, Kevin, what do you most like about coaching?
Well, again, I'm, I suppose my disc profile, I'm a high I. I like mixing with people, meeting new people all the time, new experiences. So any given week, I'll be meeting up with a whole bunch of new people, working with them. And, as a coach, you tend to get quite close to your clients, and, because again, it's business coaching, but business impacts on their lives, and their lives also impact on the business. So there's an element of getting involved in their ongoing lives. So for me, it's being able to help people. It's also being able to generate jobs in my area. And generate wealth, I suppose, in the area, which is, has to be the way forward for the economy.
I suppose, Kevin, just to kind of pick up on that, speaking to business owners or introducing Action Coach to business owners, you touched on it there in terms of the different sectors and your disc profile. You mentioned variety and working with different industries, for example. A lot of business owners, when introduced to Action Coach, may not necessarily understand that it is every sector and that we can help business in each sector. Talk us through, I suppose, your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, you do get a school of thought where the coaches look or kind of go specifically for a particular industry or something like that, and that's fine. And they become, if you like, subject matter experts in that industry. But what I've come to realize with Action is that the individual business owners and their teams have to be the experts on their business. They're working with it day in, day out, no matter how much I know about the industry. And, while every company is the same, everyone is different. You have different owners, different stages of development, different team, different markets. The permutations are endless. So I thought when I started first with Action Coach that I would work with a solicitor's office and I could cookie cut after that and so on. And that wasn't the case. I found out very rapidly. So it is understanding what the business needs at that point in time. It's not about being a subject matter expert or a mentor or a consultant. I've been all of those, but this is quite different. And the way I often explain it is that as a coach, I don't kick the ball, but I help you score. And it's very much like that. It's understanding the people in front of you, understanding what they need, and it's different for every business owner that I work with. You've got general outlines, but it's understanding, getting close, understanding what it is they need. What are their goals? What do they want to achieve?
Absolutely. And Kevin, just coming to I suppose you mentioned it, the Action Coach system. How are you using the Action Coach system to grow and to move forward, both yourself and your clients?
Yeah, well, it was quite new to me anyway, actually setting down goals and setting, and writing them down and actually being very specific. And so it's worked for me. I know dream charts was a new concept to me when I got that. Again, my background would have been, as I say, corporate world where it was more, I suppose, dog eat dog type scenario, even within your own colleagues. Whereas this whole idea of actually setting goals and allowing that your subconscious to work with those goals and help you to achieve what you want to do was quite new to me. And I know when I started first, I thought it was all a bit soft. But I kind of did it to prove it wrong, if you can imagine that mindset. And after a while, I found it was working for me. And so there was a whole change around on my whole just approach both to my personal life and to the business life. So the concept of setting goals, working towards them, allowing the subconscious to work on them, and that definition of a goal. A goal is something we're not quite sure how to achieve. If it is, it's a task. Go off and do it. So that all of that was quite new for me. So I'm using that system with both myself and my clients. It tends to be a new concept for a lot of the clients as well. That to actually, lots of people can tell you what they don't want. It's quite different, a bit more involved to tell you what they do want. And most business owners really haven't sat down and figured that one out. A lot of them haven't anyway. A lot of the ones I've met. So helping them to do that, getting very clear on that. So that part of the system, I think, is vital in what I use both in my personal life and in the business life and family life, etc.
So you mentioned the mastery destination. So our step one of the 6-step Action Coach system. It's interesting to hear you say that. In terms of your learning, so we use the term an Action Coach for anyone watching that maybe isn't aware, BFO. So blinding, flashing of the obvious. So a learning, Kevin. I'm sure there's been plenty of them over the years, but what would you say is your biggest BFO since joining Action Coach?
Well, one of them is that I don't know everything, and that I'm constantly having to learn and having to relearn often in cases. I know Brad said at one stage, the good thing about it is we learn stuff. The challenge maybe is we tend to forget, so we need to learn again. So what I found was interesting listening to various, as we did back in the day, tapes or CDs on various business gurus, that each time I listened to it, I got a different thing out of it. And also I found that working with clients, what I've been working on actually came up, and actually was able to apply with clients. So for me, it's that whole mindset thing, the whole approach and the whole choosing to have a positive mindset. I think that was quite new for me as well. And getting that across to my clients and their teams, again, has a huge impact on their business.
You mentioned your background in sales, Kevin. I remember when I was first brought into Action Coach, you did a session with ourselves, and one piece of advice you gave to me, and I'm sure you'd give it to any of the listeners, sales as a subject. You obviously have a passion for it, but to study sales, you said to me, study sales.
Yeah. You see, and I mean, the example is used to bring it home to people. If you had to have a serious heart operation, and you had two doctors in front of you, one is saying, I qualified 30 years ago and that was enough for me, and we'll go to work on your heart. Or you've got somebody who's staying up to the minute, learning all the latest techniques now, and the guy who hadn't studied for 20 or 30 years, he's going to be cheaper. He's only going to be $5,000, but the other fellow's $20,000. Now, which one are you going to pick? So so it's like anything else. Sales is a learned skill. It's a learned skill, and you constantly need to be honing it. If you look at Bruce Doyle, who was in the Hall of Fame, he was with Action for over 20 years. He was one of the best salespeople they had. He used to spend 4 hours every week studying sales, and still does. He's got his own coaching setup now. But he studied sales for 4 hours every week, even though he had the highest conversion rate of any coach. He was up in the high 80s on meeting people. And in fact, at one stage, that's all he did was convert prospects, and then coaches went off and coached them. But he's like, I remember talking to him one day, he had 18 prospects he met in the day, and he converted all 18. Which would be, if you had that kind of expertise in closing a sale, what would your business look like?
Absolutely. No, it's interesting just hearing you talking about the global community. You mentioned you're based in Cork, Kevin, but how much has that played a part in your learning? The fact when you did become a franchise owner, to have the support globally and to be able to I suppose learn from those who have implemented the Action Coach system worldwide.
Yeah, when I started off, I was looking for a lot of help. What I found was the community was extremely positive. Everybody wanted to help. Nobody brushed you off or didn't have time or whatever else. So I found that very empowering. That's only gotten better with the technology now that we can meet anywhere, anyone. You can be based anywhere. And I found that the cooperation among the coaches here in Ireland became fantastic once we had to go on to whatever. And that's really had a huge impact on my business. It's probably, I've gotten an award this year for my business, going up by 4 times,
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yeah. No, B's in the background and B's controlling things. So thank you for that, B. Shout out, but she's put it on screen there. Advice for any new coaches joining the Action Coach community, Kevin. If there was one piece of advice, what would it be, apart from sales?
Well, follow the system.
Follow the system.
Yeah, the system has been honed over the last 28, 29 years for what works. Don't think you know better. Follow the system to the letter. As you'll see coaches who've been, maybe like myself, 18 years in action now, that might be cutting corners on the system, but they've kind of developed stuff. But when you're starting, when I say starting, first 5 years, follow the system to the letter. And then
did you follow the system, Kevin?
Initially, no. And as I said to you, that was very expensive. And when I finally got around to following the system properly, it started working well for me.
Brilliant. Brilliant. No, that's a great piece of advice for anyone watching that is looking to join our team. Kevin, I suppose, in terms of Kevin and your plan, how do you plan on growing your business? So what next for Kevin?
Yeah, well, I'm as I say, the whole flexibility, being able to work around. I'm a bit like plastic. I'm being recycled. I got a live-in grandson who will be just turning teenage at the end of this month. So I got another 6-7 years of managing that whole journey, or helping to manage that journey, I'd say, at this stage. So for me, this franchise allows me to continue working. For those who don't know, I'll be 68 this year, and I don't see myself stopping. I've just signed up a contract for another 7 years, so I see that at least carrying forward. But I'm thankful to Action Coach that I'm able to work like that. I'm able to earn a very good living from this, apart from just having a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, and that is a big part of it, isn't it, Kevin? Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you on a Friday afternoon. I'm not sure if Munster are playing this weekend, but I'm sure you have a fabulous weekend lined up. Great, as I said, this is going to be a series where we are going to be catching up with each and every one of our franchise partners across Ireland, across the nation, to hear their story. And Kevin, it was fantastic to hear your story and to hear about your journey with Action Coach. And as I said, another decade at the very least we're expecting out of you here. So,
Ian McFarlane is my hero. He turned 80 last year, and he's still he's Australian, but he's based in the middle states somewhere, and he's still going strong. So why not?
Keeps the heart burning, Kevin. Listen, it was fantastic, and thank you to all the listeners, and we'll be back again soon for episode number 2.
Fantastic. Thank you, Barry.